Welcome to another episode of Everybody's Got Something with Seth Hoffman. Today we have very special guest, traveling photographer Cheryl Cathcart and keyboard legend Tony Orant. Let's get into it. Let's have a good time. Okay, welcome. And it's true, everybody does got something. And we are here with our wonderful guest, Cheryl. And so welcome back. You have come back a few weeks ago from a pretty exciting trip where you've taken some photography. Why don't we start off a little bit just telling us about that trip, and then we'll get into other things about your life.
Okay. I just got back from 3 weeks in Korea, about 3 weeks ago. I got interested in Korea several years ago when I was on my way to Mongolia, and you can't fly directly into Mongolia. You have to go in through China, Russia, Japan, or Korea, South Korea.
And all these trips, are they trips for the purpose of photography, or just to visit people? Or?
Mostly I do. I mean, I love new cultures and languages and cuisine and everything, but I, for many years, did horse photography in faraway places. But then I got interested in Antarctica and the Arctic and polar bears and other brown bears in Alaska and animals, and then birds in Central America. So it's expanded a lot. But that was how I came across Korea. I hadn't really thought about going there, but I had to go, and spent just a day and a half, and thought it was a really beautiful place. So some years later, here I am, and I went on 2 small tours, and then had a private tour that I arranged in the middle week to go down to Jeju Island.
Okay.
So.
Okay, and so how long have you been since a child? Were you always into photography? Was it something you came upon later in life? How did you get the photography bug, if you will?
It kind of coincided with traveling. I had done a little photography, but I didn't consider myself a photographer. I went to South America in '73 with a boyfriend who was a photographer, and he taught me how to use a darkroom and gave me my first camera. So it was just kind of a natural progression that
this young fellow out there planted the seed of your photography.
Yeah, he was.
And where in South America, out of curiosity, did you go on that trip?
We flew from Miami to Colombia, and then stayed on land through Colombia, went to Ecuador, flew back, went on a ship out to the Galapagos Islands and spent a summer.
Wow.
And then came back flying, went to Peru, walked the Inca Trail to Machu Picchu, and then continued on. And then the boyfriend ran out of money, so
See ya.
And I kept going to Bolivia and then around.
You said your personality is good. It's not that good.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't have that much money. Yeah. Ended up in Brazil, and then down to Argentina, and then
incredible. This
really
was in '73. This must have been quite a time to be.
I didn't run into a lot of women doing that.
I'm sure.
So
I'm sure.
It was pretty exciting.
So let me ask you, what is it about photography that a lot of people get into it and they dabble into it, but you've really made this into your life in such a special way? What is it about the whole process that for you excites you or intrigues you?
I love the color and motion. I love, like I say, the animals and just capturing life. But I like architecture and all of that. And I think it's really storytelling.
Yeah.
Is what keeps me there.
Yeah.
It's never ending. There's always a new story. And
it's one of the few ways you can experience something and kind of take it back with you or share it in a way.
Yeah, and you can be in a scene, but you're kind of at the edge of it, so you're also able to observe what people are doing or animals are doing. And
And so I'm curious, I imagine the photography world obviously is a very different thing now than it was when you got started with you know, the whole digital
Right.
photography and all.
Right.
Can you speak a little bit on the difference, maybe if you preferred one or the other, or how you've adapted with it?
I enjoyed analog photography and working in a dark room, but I always hated the chemicals.
Yeah.
So switching over to digital really made sense. But I did that at about 2000.
Okay.
And since it haven't looked back.
Yeah.
Because now that the cameras are so amazing, and for this trip, I have switched to an iPhone camera.
Okay.
That's the 16, and
they take pretty
so
amazing
I was
photos,
I had really heavy lenses. I had a 500 millimeter lens that took effort
Yeah.
to
You have to get a
wheeled
maybe
around.
a roadie with you
Yeah,
on your
right.
next
So
trip.
they have a heavy backpack.
She's
and,
accepting applications for the next trip. Yeah.
right. But I don't. I have never made my living
Yeah.
with the photography.
Got it.
I also did English and then a master's in accounting, so I'm really good at counting other people's money. So that has.
Well, it's good to be able to use your multi-skills
Right.
to do what you love.
And because I did kind of a specialty with biomedical research funding,
Yeah.
government, federal funding, I was able to go to Africa, I was able to go to Russia,
Yes.
and do little consulting jobs
Amazing.
and drop off of whatever main job I had at the
Yes.
time.
We need to get a map and point out all the places you've
need
been.
to.
Well, let's check out some of these photos
Okay.
from your recent trip. And this is a special viewing because we have some special musical accompaniment.
Right.
From our
I'm just,
next
I'm so
guest.
honored that Tony Orant
Yeah.
agreed to play the background music for this. So the setup is that I flew into Seoul, Korea.
Mm-hmm.
Also later took a short flight down to Jeju Island where the special horses are that I'll talk about them later, but you'll see them in the middle of the slideshow. And then came back and then ended up taking the train to Busan, which is the major port, second biggest city of Korea. And that was kind of in honor of the Train to Busan, that's the zombie movie that everybody loves.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right.
So it's just colors and impressions and people and
All right. Well,
Tony playing beautiful music behind it.
Let's
Thank you.
Let's go on a journey. Beautiful. What a
Thank
journey.
you.
What
Thank
a
you.
journey. There's so much.
3 weeks piled into, what was that, 5 minutes, 10 minutes?
Incredible, incredible. And so when you see that, are you just drawn right back? Can you imagine, you remember
Right.
the smells and sounds you were
The
experiencing?
food was incredible. It was so fresh, and we went to barbecue places.
And so you went, did you know, you knew someone when you went there, or you were
I went on 2 small tours, so
Okay.
they were,
So you're with some groups of some
yeah,
people,
there
okay.
were plans, and there were bus rides and trains, and a lot of that was figured out. The middle part with the horses, when I flew to Jeju Island, a small local travel company helped me
Okay.
do that, because
Okay.
it apparently was impossible.
Sure.
They said at first it's fall season is their heavy season,
Okay.
and millions of people come.
Wow, wow.
There's about 750,000 people that live on Jeju,
Wow.
and about 10,000
Yeah.
visitors come every year, and a lot of them come in the fall.
And
'cause
how
it's
is
so
it getting
beautiful.
around there? Is it a lot, speaking English? Are you able to get by, or was that a very challenging?
I got fouled up in taking Korean lessons, so I had kamsamnida, which means thank you, and I said that a lot.
Good. I'm
the
sure
rest
they
of the-
appreciated that.
The rest of the time I was able to speak English. They
And
were
people were
very
able to-
well educated and
Yeah,
could figure out what I wanted. When I first got to Jeju, these horses are very special, and I can talk about that. They're from Mongolian strain, and they're related to the Icelandic horses.
yeah.
But they thought, the translation came through that I wanted to go horseback riding
Okay.
on any old horse,
Oh.
which was not what I wanted to do.
He'll do.
So,
Yes, that's
yeah,
right.
right.
Yeah.
So anyway, we stomped through some fields in the rain and looked at some horses that I'm
So
sorry.
when did they get cleared up that you didn't want to actually ride on the horses?
The guide
Were
that
they
they
trying to
had
get you up
assigned
there?
me,
You're
the
like,
first
"No, no."
guide was a wonderful woman,
Yeah.
and she had taught English.
Okay.
And so she just said, what is it that you wanted to do? When
Yeah.
she started to lay out the schedule for
Okay.
me, we were going to a horse farm, and we were going to go to a breeding center, and I've seen that stuff before, but
Yes.
I didn't want to spend time. I wanted to see the special
Yes.
little Jeju horses.
Yes.
So as soon as she understood what I
Okay.
wanted, she
Nice.
just changed the
Great.
whole plan. And
So wonderful. And I imagine traveling, someone who's traveled as much as you have, experiencing just angels around the world who just help you along the way, and are
Right.
either through hospitality or just through guidance. And so you
Yeah.
have that nature, so I'm sure you bring that about in people.
well, you need to be really flexible
Yes,
because
yes.
you can have all kinds of layers of plans, and
Yeah.
if they run afoul, if you freak out,
Yeah.
you can ruin your own trip. So
Exactly.
it's,
So you're, as an experience of a photographer, you're a world traveler as much as anything
Right.
else. I was wondering, all these pictures, what is it? I imagine back in the day, before digital photography, there was a different thing. Okay, do I want to take a picture of this? Because there's more limited film. I don't know. Is it a different thing for you now? You
it's
just
very
we'll take it.
different.
Who cares?
It's
Or not,
very
who cares?
different.
You know what I'm saying?
When I took off for South America, I had to think about, and also you couldn't change. So if you had slide film in your camera, you had to take the whole roll,
Right.
and then there might not be another one.
Right.
If you, if you had black and white or color,
Yeah.
had to use the whole roll.
Yeah.
Now with
And to develop and print something, that's
with the
quite a
digital
thing.
cameras, they cost more, but pixels are free.
Yeah.
So you take a gazillion pictures.
Yeah.
Some people think, well, you should concentrate on taking good pictures and
Yeah.
get it right in camera,
Yeah.
is a phrase
Yeah.
you often hear.
Yeah.
Which I agree with to some
Yeah.
extent, but
Yeah.
but I also take thousands of pictures.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So overall, it sounds like with digital, it's
Yeah.
for you. It's
It
mostly a
suits
positive.
me better, yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, what are how can people see your photos? Do you have exhibitions? You post them?
I haven't exhibited for a long time. I had several museum and gallery shows in the past, but I'm really wanting to work on publishing an article about the horses, which, as I stated, the Mongolians were really conquering lots of lands, and they would bring their horses with them.
Yeah.
So as I started making this story, I heard about it when I went to Iceland, and I stayed on a horse farm for a few days before I met the other photographers that I was going to do landscapes with. And the family took me around. They had 150 horses, and they were very proud of them, and they took me to see all of them.
Wow.
So.
And where did your love for horses? Is that something that came from traveling and seeing them, or
I grew up in Wyoming, and I'm not an accomplished rider at all. But they're a magnificent animal, and they're so photogenic. And you see them in art back into Lascaux and Altamira, the cave paintings, and I have photographed those horses are still alive in Mongolia, so they were part of what I was going to see.
So do you have somewhere, in 100 years from now, if someone wants to be able to see your life's work or something? Imagine they're on some hard drive or something, but I'm just thinking of all the stories and places that exist through your eye and through your lens.
I don't have a
Maybe
place
think about
where
that.
I'm
So
leave.
when we're all just visiting on this in this world here.
Temporary.
But to be able to see that and for generations after to see. Well, wonderful. Well, it's been such an honor to know you and to talk to you and to see your photos. And
Thank you.
Maybe you could just send off, I was asked if you could, a little bit of words of wisdom or encouragement with travel. A lot of people would think, I can't just go travel, I need a whole someone else, but just any encouragement or words of wisdom to someone who's thinking, I don't really have someone to travel with, but I want to do that.
I met people on this latest trip who had never been on a trip like this to a foreign country, and they were feeling some fear. I have done it for so long, and what I found is that if you work through the fact that it's kind of scary, it opens you up. You're vulnerable to everybody. And wonderful things happen.
Yes. All right. So there it is. So anyone who's out there who's interested in traveling, just do it. Open heart, open mind, and let
my phrase on some of my sites is, I haven't been everywhere, but it's on my list.
Nice. All right. Beautiful. Well, you will arrive at that destination. And thank you so much. You're an inspiration, and I look forward to seeing your future photos.
Thank you, Seth.
And all the best to you.
And thank you to Tony Orant for playing music to the background. I love it.
It was gorgeous. All right. Well, stay tuned for more. Thanks so much. All right, Tony, such a joy to be here with you.
My pleasure, man.
I'm looking forward to hearing about your musical journey and also about the man behind the keyboard. I know so often, I see people in their element, and I just, that's just where I see it. But I'm excited to learn a little bit more about you today.
It's always better to know that they're really train wrecks in real life. So it's an equalization.
See, than the rest of us who think, what can I do?
Why am I doing this? What am I doing wrong?
Exactly. So first, why don't we tell a little bit about your musical journey, some of the bands you're playing with today, and how you got started.
Well, let's see how I got started. I got started when I was really young. My grandma was still alive, and she had a house on the south side of Chicago. My grandfather, who died when my mom was 9, was a bookie. And apparently he was very successful because Al Capone tried to recruit him, but my grandfather was anti-drugs, anti-prostitution, so there were a few shootouts, but then Capone left him alone. But he died really young of a heart attack, so he died when my mom was 9. But apparently he did well enough that my grandmother, her house was on 2 lots and on the south side of Chicago. And which is really highly unusual. And the second lot was my grandfather's garden. So every Sunday, you know, my dad would pack us all up in the car and we'd go there and he would take care of Grandma's lawn and her garden and stuff, and Mom and Grandma would cook. And I just remember she had this grand piano upstairs and there was this little stained glass window. And so I would just go up there and just bang on the piano. And
like before you knew
I was like
anything
4.
about it?
I was like,
Just
yeah, I didn't know
experience.
anything. It was just, there was a piano and it was like, wow, listen to that. And then I'd just look at that window while I was playing.
What a memory.
And then there's a picture of it somewhere. It's like
Is that
my
right?
sister produced one, and it's a.
There's that photo
There's
exists?
there's a photo. I mean, because I was there every Sunday, so somewhere someone took a photo, and it ended up in a family record, in a family album, and then
So that planted the seed of the sound, and I imagine just the feeling of that vibration in your body.
Yeah, it was amazing. And, you know, and then when she passed, my aunt had that house, and then she, you know, moved out in the early 70s, so that piano ended up in our house.
Is that right?
So I was probably the only kid in America that asked for piano lessons.
Yeah.
And I took piano lessons for like 4 or 5 years, and then my teacher.
And this was all classical kind of stuff?
No,
No,
oh
okay.
God, no, I didn't even get that far. It was Snug as a Bug in a Rug,
Okay.
and, you know, Little Snowflake, some, you know, re-lyricized, you know, traditional songs. And and then my guy took a job with IBM and moved to the East Coast, and then the guy that replaced him, you know, my piano teacher was really kind of my mentor. You know, I didn't even realize it at the time, but it was like, you know, he was like
Do you remember his name?
His name is Larry England, and thanks to Facebook, we are friends again.
Amazing.
You know, 70, you know, 50 years later, whatever it is.
Incredible.
Yeah, he was the guy that taught me there was a difference between Rick Wakeman and Keith Emerson. Rick Wakeman is great, he's classical, but Keith Emerson plays jazz. And that was like at 10 years old, he's dispensing this knowledge to me. So, but that's where that all started. And then, yeah. So
And did you feel a performer in you? Or was that
No,
something
I
you
didn't-
just loved the music?
I just liked the way, I just liked the way that I felt like sitting at the piano, all of a sudden, everything else, everything made sense.
Yeah.
You know, the one part of my life that, like, you know, I didn't have conflict or, you know, chaos, or I didn't know, you know, what was going on. It was like the one place I could go, and it was refuge, and it was like just me and that thing and whatever noise we were making. So,
incredible.
yeah.
Okay, and so you had some lessons, you got to play, and then was it kind of a nonstop journey? Did you ever stop playing, or where did it
I
go
never
from
stopped
there?
playing. So 8th grade, by this time now, my piano teacher, I think, has already moved on. And I got kicked out of Catholic school. Too many
Okay.
fights. And
Is
so,
that right?
yeah, well, you know.
And not to dwell on that, can you tell us about maybe one of them, or what sort of
Well,
thing started
well,
a fight with Tony back then?
Everything started a fight with Tony. Tony was a mouthy kid. Tony was kind of a fat kid, and Tony had grown up in the inner city where, you know, fighting was a way of life, and you had to deal, especially as a white minority, which sounds strange in America, but I was a white minority.
Yeah.
So then going to Catholic school, my parents tried to get me out of, you know, gang environments and everything else, and somewhere else. The socio-political paradigm that existed in elementary school wasn't necessarily conducive to somebody who, you know, saw somebody get set on fire in school, you know. So, and my mouth was quicker than my mouth was quicker than my brain, and my brain's not too slow. So that got me in lots of trouble. And then, so then I ended up in public school. And then piano seemed to be, like I was already going through it already. You know, everybody wanted to fight because I'm the new kid, you know. But then I found a piano in a practice room. Then somebody heard me playing Pinball Wizard, you know, by Elton John. And that all of a sudden, you know, that's when I realized, like, oh my God, you could use this to talk to other people. You know, that wasn't even my intention, but the fact that it was like, here's this guy like an hour ago was planning where we were gonna, you know, rumble after school, and now next thing you know, he's like, check this out, you know. So that was an epiphany.
So what a bridge! So early on, you saw music as quite a bridge to, you know.
It was a better communicator than me.
Yeah.
So.
Well, why don't let's tell us about the first piece you're going to be sharing with us today.
So that piece, I wrote that a long time ago. I wrote that for my wife when we were still not married, but we used it as our wedding march. It's called Side by Side, and yeah, I play it a lot these days. Yeah.
Okay, all right, well, let's give it a listen. Let's check it out. Thank you. Gorgeous, gorgeous
Wow,
piece.
thanks.
So I'm curious, as I'm watching this and listening to it, how do you go from that being in your head, were you just kind of improvising and then you formed it into a song, or what's your process?
Yeah, mostly it's just improvising first, and then, hopefully, I used to try to record everything, and then I realized that came with homework, because then you have to listen to everything.
Yeah.
And I realized that probably wasn't the most efficient use of time. So, now I'm more about just improvising, and if it's good enough to remember, that's great. And if it wasn't good enough to remember, it was meant to blow away.
Okay.
So, yeah, so a lot of stuff probably blows away.
Okay. Well, that's how you know. And some of the most special stuff blows away, and we never hear again. Some of the
Right.
special stuff we get to keep, and that's what life is, and we appreciate what we get.
That's right. That's right. What's meant to be is.
Yes,
So.
yes. Well, gorgeous, gorgeous piece. And so, how did playing piano go from then playing out with bands and the whole world of live music and playing with other people?
It didn't even occur to me to be in a band or that piano would be in a band, even though I was really into Elton John at that point, when,
Yeah.
14, yeah.
Yeah.
14. But KISS happened, right? Because when I got kicked out of grade school, out of Catholic school, I then had to go to public school. And the public school teacher that taught music, that poor guy, he didn't know what to do. And so his solution was, everybody bring in records on Friday, and you'll play the music. So,
great idea.
so there was this guy, Scotty Pollack, and Scotty Pollack brought this Kiss Alive record in, and of course, like everybody else in 1976, you saw that and you're like, what is this? And it was really entertaining for like 6 weeks, and if my parents hadn't gotten so freaked out by it, it might have had a shorter shelf life.
Yeah, yeah.
But that 6 weeks of Kiss was like pretty illuminating. And like everybody else, when Elvis hit Ed Sullivan, we all discovered Kiss, and every kid wanted a guitar. And well, there were already 3 kids in class that had a guitar, and they're like, Tony, we should start a band. So that was how that started. And it was a while till we kind of figured out how a band really worked.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's how it started.
And so, and you were just keyboard. Had you tried other instruments as well? Or this was the one that spoke to you?
Guitar started pretty quick. Well,
So you
actually,
played guitar as well?
I play guitar. I consider myself a bass player, and I play guitar too.
Uh-huh.
There's definitely a distinction.
Yeah.
Lots of music that I like wasn't really keyboard centric.
Yeah.
Kiss, for example, not that I was like that big in a Kiss thing, but that really, that exposed me to Rush, which then exposed me to all these heavier bands. And while I like a lot of that music, it's no fun to play keyboards on.
Yeah.
But I love bass, and that's usually what I hear before anything. So I started playing bass when I was like 15. And my dad had a really nice Epiphone 12-string that was laying around. And so I used to pick that up and take that to school all the time. So I could play 2112, all open chords, So yeah, I still play enough guitar to be awful, and but bass I can get a gig.
Hold it down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And so when did you? So that was the first band you were like 15 something.
14.
14.
Yeah.
And was it? You guys play out? You play parties?
No,
or
God,
you
no.
just
We
in
didn't even
the-
have a drummer. We did like maybe 4 rehearsals, and I stole. See, Al Campbell was our guitar player, and he brought his brother's records over, and he brought over Emerson, Lake and Palmer's Brain Salad Surgery, Rush, Fly By Night, and Kiss Hotter Than Hell. And he got Hotter Than Hell back. The other 2 I never gave back. And the band, it really wasn't a band, because it was like all of a sudden this got my attention. And now it's all about trying to learn how to play like those guys for a while. Because I'm like, well, if you can't play like that, you can't be in a band.
Yeah.
You got to be that good, at least that good,
Yeah.
So yeah, it was back to the bedroom and the record player, and start trying to learn those things. But then by the time I was like 15, I started getting bands for real.
And what was the first band that you're like, okay, we're actually pretty good. This is something.
Some of my best friends still 50 years later, we had an awful band called Treason. And we weren't awful, actually. The guitar players were both really good. Actually, the whole band was really good.
Yeah.
But we played somebody's garage party at 15, and there might have been a keg of beer there, and there might have been some underage drinking. And when that gig was over, I said, I love you guys. And it's great that we have 30 songs, but 28 of them are Judas Priest songs, and there's no reason for me to be here. So I quit that band.
Okay.
And then got a car, and right away, you know, I used to tell my friends in high school, there's life north of 79th Street, which would here be like, there's life north of Bernalillo, or north of Bernalillo, right? It's like, everybody, you know, that's when I realized there were people who were never going to play with anybody except their kids in their neighborhood. And I was on a different path already, because I was already playing with people from different parts of the city before I graduated high school. So that's kind of how it started. But all those friends of mine from that first band were still friends, and they all still play, and you know, and they all blame me because, you know, they actually kind of threw me out of that band too, because my nickname had become well, I'm Tony, and then it became Tone, and then it became Stone, because, you know, and then it was Stone Face. Right. And then it was the Stone Faced Bitch Master, because I was such a pain in the butt with everybody. Like, no, we got to do this right. We got to do it again and do it again. And they couldn't take it anymore. They're like, you got to go. But then they credit me years later. You're the reason we still play, because, you know, we were about it.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And so tell me a little bit about, I know you have some very exciting things happening now, some exciting shows coming up. You play with some incredible musicians here in town.
I got really lucky when I got here. It took a while to get my face out there, but once I did, I got really lucky. You know, I have my own thing, and by the time this airs, it'll probably be over. But Saturday at the Lobo Theater, we're recreating the last waltz. I call it the next waltz, because we did the first waltz last year. So this year we recreate that again. I do it as a food drive for Roadrunner Food Bank. So last year we did 900 pounds worth of food, so I'm hoping we do 1,500 pounds this year. There's like 20 people involved in that production on stage, brass section, singers, all kinds of stuff. And then the next one is Friday, December 13th, my Pink Freud tribute called Pink Freud. We're doing a show at the Lobo Theater again, and then we're doing an encore set called The Dank Side of the Moon, and it's going to be a reggae presentation of the dark side, but we're also all playing different instruments. So people get to see me play something besides keyboards for a change. And
Will be bass?
It'd be, bass, I'm not going to work that hard. So we're all going to be playing musical chairs on that, which will make it fun. And then, you know, I play with Lon Klonk and Let It Grow, doing Grateful Dead stuff. And Zillafist has been in hibernation for a couple of years, but it always threatens to come back to life. So maybe in 2025.
And so one of the things that I love about seeing you play live in your bands is it goes on a journey. It's like you can feel like there's conversations happening, and I was, you know, just how it, you know, whether the solos, but it really feels like a conversation. You can see, you know, you listening and hearing and responding. Can you tell us a little bit about that aspect of music and how you incorporate that?
You know, part of it happened, I think, by accident. When I graduated, I was 20 years old, and you know, all the bands I'd been playing with were all older than me, because you know, I was just lucky in that regard, and so I was always playing up, and so even when I was in high school, you know, the band that I was playing with, those guys had already graduated high school, you know, and I'm still like a freshman or sophomore. So by the time those guys got to that point where they had to start making some, you know, adult decisions, a lot of them had gone into what we would call the lounge business, you know, and they would play, you know, everybody wear matching pants and shirts and play lounge, but they'd get paid a decent wage to play music 5 nights a week. And you know, frankly, that was way more attractive to me than working at Harris Bank, which is what I was doing. And that was a really great job for a 20-year-old, but I was just like, this is not what I want to do the rest of my life. And so
it takes guts to be able to intervene with that.
Yeah, it made my mom cry. But, you know, but one of my friends had said, hey man, there's just really kind of a bad band, but they're looking for a keyboard player and you'll go to work right away. And that was it. I started playing with those guys, and what was the question?
Just about the conversation music.
Oh, yeah. So I ended up playing with those guys, and there were no auditions or rehearsals because they were a working band. And it was like, okay, tonight we're playing at the,
Yeah, your audition is the gig.
yeah, and I'm like, oh, I don't even have a car. And the guitar player took the keys out of the bass player's hand, give him your van, and next thing you know, they gave me a vehicle, and I'm like, wow, this is the life, right? So now I have.
Didn't give me no vehicle.
Yeah, no, they gave me a van,
Yeah.
and so I drove to that gig, and it was like on stage, I'm learning the song. So
Yeah.
thank God, like radio was always on around
Yeah.
the house, so I was
Yeah.
at least familiar with things I was hearing, and they were playing, disco and pop of the day because it
Yeah.
was 1980,
Yeah,
you know. So I was forced to learn a lot of music on the fly, and then when I came here to Albuquerque, I realized what was going on musically for musicians in terms of opportunities.
Yeah.
And I realized, like back home, you'd fight for gigs because you
Yeah.
got to work,
Yeah.
and that means sometimes you play music you don't want to play,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it doesn't matter because that usually pays better than the stuff you want to
Sure,
play.
right.
But when I came here, it didn't matter if I played the stuff I wanted to play or not. It wasn't going to pay what it was paying back home. Now
Yeah.
it was like freeing. I'm like, well, now I'm not going to play anything I don't want to play. So that was like the rule number one. And once that stopped, it was like I was also really into jam music, but I couldn't find the players to do that back home because people want to work, and they don't have time to improvise and waste time. People want to dance, and it's like we got to get that girl's phone number before last call. Let's go.
Yeah.
Here it was like the first thing I did was stumble into the Grateful Dead thing, and it was just this is exactly what I want to do. It's more fun for me than playing a script.
Yeah.
So even with the bands that I have,
It's more fun as someone who's in the audience. It's
I would
to
think.
hear it because it's alive. It's not
Right.
like I know where it's going to start and it's like a living thing happening.
we try to hit the marks that everybody expects to hear, but like in all those bands that I do try to make it a living, breathing thing. And even when I bring new people into it, I'm like, don't get married to the record. It's
Yeah.
like it's a great place to start.
Yeah, it's a good foundation. Yeah.
Right, but listen to what's going on, and because he does some cool things, and she does some really cool things in the middle over here, and you want to, So yeah, that's it. I appreciate that anybody even notices that.
Yeah,
but-
I mean, it's just it's such a joy to hear because I feel like alive. It brings just a burst of life into
It's very
the souls. And I
symbiotic.
mean that's why I mean it's one thing for there to be a talent, but you give a gift. You really provide such a gift that I'm grateful for. I mean when I heard you all with the Lon Kalanka band the other day, I felt like I got a dose of vitamins and medicine.
Oh,
when
it was
I
good
left
for
that
all of us
place,
because
so.
we hadn't played together in a while either, so
Yeah.
that was nice.
Yeah. Well, I wonder if you could just take us out with one little bit. What's the tone when Tony's not on the keyboard, or what? Tell us just a little bit in the glimpse of. I know you're at the gym a lot. Tell us what.
Yeah,
how do you fill
I've
your
been,
days?
I went through a lot of life changes in the last, I mean, the pandemic was hard for everybody,
Yeah.
but, my wife had already been in hospice for a year before the pandemic started, and I was taking care of her at home, and, and when she passed, the pandemic had sort of ended too, and trying to figure out what I'm doing with my life, because before then I was, living a dual life as a paralegal and then as a musician, and I just didn't have the empathy to do the paralegaling thing anymore. And so now, so I was working as a community service individual, which basically I work with mentally disabled adults and help them navigate in the world. And I did that for a while last year, and then I was on a track for being a special ed teacher, but I had to kind of put that on halt for a minute while I had some health issues going on.
Yeah.
And now it's just, I'm trying to figure out what it is I'm doing with my life.
Okay.
I got to grow up really quick because,
Yeah.
retirement's looming.
Yes. Well, whatever you're doing on behalf of everyone who's ever in the room with you playing music, we thank you, and God bless all that you're doing. Whatever these other things behind the scene, we have whatever's we to figure out will find its right place. But but you provide such a gift to so many people, and I just wish you all the best and hope to see you at least 1,000 more times. And
That's really humbling, bro, but thank you.
Yes. So check this out. We're going to post when this airs, we'll post links to where you're playing so you can experience it. But you really do. You provide soulful medicine to,
thank you so
many
much.
people, and you're an inspiration, and it just, may all you do be blessed, and I hope you know how appreciated you are.
Trust me,
in
man, the
this world.
city gives back to me all the time. You have no idea.
Beautiful. All right, Tony, it's been a pleasure.
Thanks, brother.
All
Appreciate
right.
you.
Appreciate you. All right, take care, everybody.